why would it not be splitting 5 ways? Plus, the is definitely not dangerous enough without that, right? When you defeat an invasive species in combat, it will retreat to its den, and they've said that the mechanics for defeating an invasive species are similar to normal monsters, but not told us what that is yet. Instead, please follow me. Then it will be sleeping on a nest where you can find a special...
Watch your back.
Be careful!
It's a strong one.
This is where you can find a
This'll do it!
Counting on you.
Thanks. Let's go. Counting on you.
Think you got it. Nice.
All right. Let's go.
Be careful!
Challenge.
Counting on you.
Good going.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm in trouble.
Let's go.
Watch out!
Thanks. Counting on you.
Thanks. Counting on you.
No! Prince! No! Prince!
viewers, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter series videos. And yeah, as you can see, we have finally beat Brachydius in this run, actually in this game. And yeah, it is pretty cool, and he's surprisingly one of the most easiest monsters, feral monsters which has cheesed actually. The reason I tell cheese is because yeah, you want to be melting his HP slowly, or you could wait for a few more, I think a month more, and get the game. Actually, that's almost 3 weeks away from now, but still, I couldn't wait. That's why I'm beating him now. And the reason, one more reason I'm beating him is because yeah, the save file will be carrying over. So any progress that we're making here now will be carried to the main game. So that's a plus point.
Counting on you.
And yeah, I'm going to show you some few tips and tricks. As you can see, I have 1 HP, but we're still going to be clobbering him with just 1 HP.
Now's a chance.
You'll be seeing that soon pretty quick now. But yeah, before we get into that, I'm going to show you the build and stuff what we need for that. As you can see, and he is done. So yeah, for this you're going to require 4 type of monsters actually. Maratha is useless, you can just forget him. You need 3 purple gypsy ross. I'm going to explain why you need them, all those things. But I already looking at the community has been massively helpful here for providing all these things. And yeah, so we're going to go with 3 gypsies. Actually my team is kind of messed up because I have released my other gypsies and I'm preparing now to hunt Espinas, which I'll be making a video soon on that. So make sure you guys like and subscribe for that so you do not lose that video once it comes out. And yeah, so we'll be doing 3 purple gypsy ross, then 1 Paulumu and 1 red queen. You can use anything, but yeah, you need at least 1. I'm gonna change the naming screen. Instead of going for power, speed, and technical, I'm going with red, blue, green for here just to oversimplify the video. So yeah, then here this is the hammer what you get for defeating the Brachydius. And it's pretty useful again, but I would recommend, I went for this because mainly for the damage. You can take the armor, I guess. It looks pretty cool in there, but yeah, we'll show you that later a bit. And these are things they are having, and we are going to be sticking with the venom or chatterclobber hammer. Those 2 are must actually, but yeah, sticking to the chatterclobber hammer is like more better because it has chance of poisoning as well. And these are the armor things which I have. Armor honestly doesn't matter because he will 1-hit KO you. So no matter what armor you're having, it's pretty useless. So you can just use any random armor, but I'm having the Namayala armor with me. You can definitely get that, and I have made a video on that how you can summon Namayala within just 3 minutes. You can farm his entire armor set in like less than a half an hour. Yeah, you can check out that video on the channel, it's live now. And yeah, so I'm going to show you the armor what we even Brachydius drops as well. Unfortunately, I had to wait for the full game to come out because you can only take one, either armor or weapon. I have taken the weapon. And yeah, the armor is crazy actually on level 1 at least. The armor is crazy. It's way better than even, Pinnacle armor. I don't know how is that making sense, but yeah, on level 1 it is better.
Let's go.
On even on level, yeah, as you can see there, level 2 that is better, but level 1 this is better. Now, as for the monster itself, we'll be going here. Our main goal to beat him is that we are going to stun lock him. So as you can see here, once he's targeting others, you are just going to be clobbering him left, right. Every monster what we have taken so far, all they have 1 stun hit per attack, you can see here.
Counting on you.
The reason I've taken Paulum is because 1, he is green, at the same time, he has an attack which, is gonna... He has one of the highest Wyvernfell damage. Again, in case you don't know what is Wyvernfell, it is the red bar what you see here which I'm broken off. Now it's the blue bar which has a dragon icon, which is basically a stagger indicator you could say I guess for this game. So once if the enemy is staggered, you will do more damage, and he will can deplete his Wyvernfell gauge even faster. So that is the Wyvernfell gauge. Now on to the next point. Here our main goal is that we are going to stun lock him. Again, I will tell you one thing, do not take the charm armor, magical charm, because do not waste your time or energy on getting hearts, because our only goal is that every turn you should have enough monsters, we'll have enough monsters actually, that you can just stun him. You can just basically stun every turn. Once he's in blue, any attack won't hit you, as I'm going to show you a bit now here. But yeah, and yeah, we're going to have 1 blue, then 3 purple gypsy ross, because these all has stun attack except for the red queen actually. But yeah, as you can see here,
Nice.
we are depleting his entire stagger gauge or Wyvern fail gauge pretty easily. As you can see now,
Evasive.
again he is down. One more hit and he's down again. The reason one was because we purple Gypsros, it has pretty good stun. At the same time, it recovers energy a bit faster compared to other monsters. So as you can see, it's done here, and it has two stages again. One is the blue state and one is the red state. When it's not glowing, it's in the red state now, as you can see here.
Nice one.
So he is in red, this thing red state. So I'm taking the Wyvern this thing and winning the head-to-head now. So Red Queen that is. As you can see, that's the reason you need to have three different color ones actually. One Red Queen, you can use any other which has stun as well. But I've just used in Red Queen. You can take even this Toby Kadachi as well, because that also has a stun attack. So, but I'm not going to use him. I used the Red Queen because it has chance of poisoning again, because this is going to be a slow and lengthy match. You are going to be melting his HP slowly one by one. So that's the reason I'm using him, because Red Queen has higher chance when Organ's HP has chance of poisoning, but still that's a good thing. Again, we want Organ. Without him, you cannot beat him. That is simple. You need Organ, and you need to have the specific things to beat it. If you don't have the specific things, you're going to have a hard time, or you need to be extremely lucky. In turn-based game, luck is not your best friend. It's quite good contrary actually. But so here it is. We are just going to be chasing him slowly but slowly. This is going to take at least in this match, I think roughly took me almost half an hour actually. It took almost went to 70 turns if I'm not wrong. And so as you can see now, we are just melting him slowly like this itself. You have to be careful in two states. One, when he's in the normal state, he's going to be in red, always remember that. And one, he's when he's having all the aura around him or the sparkle or glitter around him, then he's going to be in the blue state. Now he's in blue state, you can see here. And once if you are winning in head-to-head, on depending on which head-to-head you're winning, then you can see the icon right over there. Now he is in speed or blue. I'm going to stick with blue actually again. So as you can see now we know that he's in blue, so we're going to switch to green. Your monsters don't have to be in nothing actually. You can just take here only this one and done. Again, do not chase trying to heal, or do not waste your time trying to get hearts back, because see, I am beating him with just one heart. Because starting he will have that advantage, but he will if you're lucky he won't do that also, but if you're unlucky, it's likely you're gonna get bothered. So do not panic, do not be desperate, or do not try to again heal. That is the worst mistake you can do.
All right.
You can just watch the entire thing now here. I know he's in red, so I'm just switching this, and we won again. Again, one more main thing is that please do not, I'm repeating again and again, do not use synchron attack when it's toppled, because that is a time when you can damage him, not damage, you're gonna shelf out, you're gonna shelf out his this the Wyvern fill gauge there. There I don't know what you can see, and in the red orb you see next to his Wyvern fill gauge, right? If he's in that state, then it is likely low likely he's going to be staggered or stunned. Or actually he doesn't get stunned actually in that phase. At least I haven't seen my own experience here. But apart from that, you have to just repeat the same thing again and again. So that is how the video is. If you have any doubts and stuff, you can check out in let me know in the comments. I'll help you out there. And if you have any other opinion or fact which you can help others get better out of this, please do let in the comment. That will be helpful to the community as well. So here I will just let this, I'm playing this game again like in 3x. It is actually playing on 5x, 2x in the game, and again here in 3x, because if you want you can watch the video until the end in case you are messing up somewhere. But the video is going to follow the same repeat. If I simplify the entire thing, it's basically
Counting on you.
have 3 Gypsyros, then 1 Pavlonu, 1 Toby Kadachi if you want to stun more actually, then or Red Queen for damage or poison. That's it. Again, do not panic just because you have 1 HP.
Let's go.
Under no circumstances should you waste your time trying to get HP. Do not do that. You are just going to keep on smashing him, as you can see here. He's getting almost, what do you say? stunned every turn.
Amazing.
Whenever he's toppled, that is your best chance to start clobbering him and reduce the Wyvern gauge.
Counting on
Your
you.
main focus should be only on
Nice one.
Thanks.
Watch out!
Wyvern fell damage, that's it. Since I have 3, if you had taken instead of Red Queen, if you take Toby Karachi, that will be much better because yeah, that's going to do a bit more stun damage. But this worked well for me, so I'm sticking to this team. And if you guys have made this far into the video, guys, please do consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. And you can check out the entire video here in case if you're having any doubts and if you're messing up somewhere at the last stage or something. Yeah, I'll just be playing the video from here. Again, thank you all for watching and see you all in the next video. Take care till then.
How about that?
Where's your chance? Watch out!
Good one.
Amazing. Nice one. Counting on you.
Eyes up. Getting rough. You okay?
Thanks.
Excellent! Help!
Let's go.
Eyes up.
Thank you.
Calm down!
Counting on you. Yes. Let's go.
Where's your chance?
Amazing. Counting on you.
You're on a roll.
Nice one.
Watch out!
Let's go.
Now's the time.
Help!
Counting on you.
Take your time.
Let's go. Amazing.
Good one.
Watch out!
Let's go. This'll do it.
Now's your chance!
I know your secrets.
Excuse me?
Birds? I don't have secrets. Well, what about the fact that your hair is actually...
Whoa, okay, maybe I have some secrets.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, a massive thank you to the folks over at Capcom who have given us some very early access to Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection.
Counting on you.
Josh and I have been playing it loads and loads, and as of this point, we can only actually speak to a specific early section of the game as we're allowed to share. Today I want to do things a little bit differently than the last two preview videos that we've done. Today I want to focus on the people who don't think they would be interested in Monster Hunter Stories 3. Whether you are someone who has never engaged with the story series before, or if you have played the first or second game and just didn't feel it was quite your cup of tea, Stories 3 is absolutely worth giving a shot. And there is a trial version that's already out now, a demo that you can get yourself involved with. But it would be an understatement to say that demo is only a very small slice.
Thanks.
You're on a roll.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Of the game that is being offered in full. There is so much more going on under the hood beyond that point, but the demo gives you a glimpse into a lot of the way that the game's mechanics work on a fundamental level and let you get your feet wet into the story itself, the world building, and the personality-filled characters that range from full-on bright and eccentric to dark and brooding with a bit of a softer, quirkier inner layer you have to dig a bit deeper to reach. That said, today is all about simply explaining why I think Stories 3 is a top-tier Monster Hunter game, and why I think it deserves the attention of even the people who think they don't have any interest in it. And while I do so, I will be showing a lot of varied footage from the game, but with a bit of a focus on Feral Yamasukami, who was teased in a trailer previously, but of course, not the full fight. And given he is one of my all-time favorite monsters and how immensely powerful he is, I thought this would be the right time to show off his existence in this game as probably the most imposing and threatening thing that I am actually allowed to speak about. First then, let's start with the people who have never played a Monster Hunter Stories game before. This, in essence then, is turn-based Monster Hunter, where you get to breed monsters, build up their power through training and gene modification, and then you fight alongside them as well as riding on top of them too. The riding, at least in combat, culminates with the kinship attacks, which are nearly always just impeccable expressions of both the monster's moveset and personality. The Pteranodon makes a sumo ring out of rocks and then slaps the hell out of his opponents. Plesioth creates a full-on tsunami and fires it at the target. Bishotten throws out piles of fruit without any real accuracy before then using the distraction of all that fruit to perfectly fastball one of the fruits at their face. They are all just absolutely beautiful, flashy, over-the-top animations that all make sense for the monster they're attached to. In the actual world itself, you can ride the monsters around, with friendly monsters being referred to as monsties, and you can explore the world in ways that are only possible because of the monsties that you have chosen to bring with you. Some monsties are better at running than others, some monsties can fly, some can swim, some can climb walls, some can burrow. They each have their own uses that assist you in exploration, even beyond what they do in combat. I said, if you're even vaguely aware of the Stories series, you probably knew about all that stuff, so what makes Stories 3 different? Well, on a more surface level, the habitat restoration system lets you release monsters into the wild in various zones within the world. When you do this, not only do you affect the overworld monster population by putting monsters into the areas they might not naturally be, but you make that monster's egg accessible there, and at higher ecosystem ranks, you make those eggs be of a higher tier, as well as giving you the ability to find that monster as a dual element creature, which takes in the natural element of the zone that you have populated within, on top of their own original elements, like a Thunder Acnosomp, who I love dearly, or my Water Garangol, who looks like he dwells in caves instead of on the surface. I keep saying this in my coverage of the game, but the story is simply more mature than the first two games. The first first game was like we were a proper kid as the main character. Second game, more of a young adolescent. But in this game, I don't know our exact age, of course, but I definitely get the vibes of young adult, like 18 to 20ish would be my guess. And the direct result is that the story treats you more as an adult. It doesn't treat you as if you were a child because you're not. And I imagine for a number of people that would have been one of the things that put them off of Stories games in the past. So I want to be clear that Stories 3 has a bit more of an intense story to tell as well, and one that even has a focus on like political intrigue and the posturing of two kingdoms at the brink of war. The simple way for me to put it is the previous Stories games were designed to be something you could enjoy if you already liked Monster Hunter and already liked turn-based games. If you fit within those categories, they absolutely would have worked for you, especially if you were into the story that they had, as of course, as the name implies, the whole thing, the whole games are very much a big focus on the story of them themselves. Stories 3, though, I think goes even beyond that. Stories 2 started to break the mold a bit, like I know that there were people who played Monster Hunter Stories 2 that had never played any other Monster Hunter game before that, which might be hard to imagine for some of you, but it was that type of game. It was that type of major upgrade from what the first Stories game was. But the thing is, a huge chunk of the Stories 2 story itself was self-referential to the first Stories game. Massive amounts of recurring characters, and even from the very start, within less than an hour of beginning the second game, you end up with the same main Palico companion you had in the first game. Stories 3 has departed away from that, being literally 200 years in the future after the previous games. And yeah, there will be some things that might reference previous games coming up here or there, but it's just not a focus of it. And so it is essentially like a fresh slate on the story itself. And they've really taken advantage of that to change the mood and the vibe of the main story, while still having a lot of silliness around through side quests and side stories and smaller dialogue interactions, but in between the big emotional stuff too. Beyond that, I genuinely believe that the way that the monsters look in Stories 3 is the best version of them visually. They may not be the most detailed, but the color palette of the monsters, of Stories in general, the way everything is just so incredibly vibrant, it just makes me appreciate the monsters more than I do even in the mainline games. In the mainline games, it can be hard to picture them as anything other than a vicious beast for some of them, but then you see Magdamalo in Monster Hunter Stories, and realistically, he's not that much different from how he looked in Rise and Sunbreak, and yet, for whatever reason, I just find him so much more intriguing.
Let's go.
In his Stories version visually, he looks like a big chunky cat that I want to pet, if that makes sense. And that holds true for a ton of different monsters in these games that I don't normally like all that much outside of the Stories series. As well, a really fun part of Stories is that it gives more of a spotlight to the lower tier monsters. And this is actually even more true in Stories 3. In mainline Monster Hunter games, oftentimes once you reach the end game, you're only going to be fighting the upper 30 to 50% of the roster as far as monster power goes at least, which means things like using Wild as an example, Chotacabra, Quemetries, Hirabami, those types of lower tier guys just get mostly forgotten or left behind because they end up unfought. Whereas in Stories 3, you can get Chotacabra from the first region of the game, and then through modifying his genes, you can make it gain power and progress with you from the start of the game to the very end of the game as one of your main companions. And it might be a touch weaker than a higher tier monster that had the exact same set of genes, but not weaker enough that it will cause you any issues with the story itself at least. I'd say Stories 3 is absolutely a fantastic point to try out the series if you aren't someone who has been interested in stories in the past. And I think that's even more true if you're someone who, like me, really enjoys the lower difficulty tier monsters in the franchise. But that said, if you're on the opposite end of that and you love higher tier monsters more too, you probably would get more out of Stories 3 than the previous games in this series as well, because there are much higher tier monsters able to be found as eggs much earlier than it was possible to find them in prior Stories games. A great example being that Seregios is available as an egg in the second region, which is a very high tier monster quite early on. Beyond that, I want to speak to those who have tried previous Stories games, maybe people who either didn't like it at all, or even those who liked it a bit, but not enough to actually want to check out the newest game in the series, which means I'm more going to be focusing on what has changed and upgraded from the past games. First, as mentioned already, the story is completely different, so if it was the story itself that didn't work for you in the past, I heavily recommend at least checking out the cutscenes from the demo to see if this new style of story vibes with you a little bit more. Second, the battling in this game is focused heavily on battling with an ally who has their own monster, which was also a big feature of Stories 2, but it is just so much better implemented in this game. One big example is that when an ally fully loses their hearts in Stories 2, combat would just end. It was a fail state, which was definitely irritating because you had no control over what your allies chose to do. Stories 3, you still don't have control over your allies to that degree, but each of them has their own different tendencies and different monsters, who of course have their own elemental focus and attack type focus as well. And even then, if your battle ally loses all of their hearts, they just crouch down and become inactive for a couple of turns. But combat does not end the way that it used to. Combat only fails in Stories 3 if you personally run out of hearts, which means while there is still of course an element of RNG to the battle ally system, they are just much less punishing from that RNG. As well, on a similar note, you can forcibly do a double kinship attack now, whereas beforehand the only way to do that was to do kinship on the same turn your ally was already planning to do it themselves, so you have less punishment and more control. On the note of kinships as well, every returning Mossy that I have done a kinship attack with has an at least somewhat different kinship animation to what they had in previous Monster Hunter Stories games. For some of them, it's minor, for some it's more major, but they put in the effort to update and change these to match Stories 3, which is an incredible bit of extra detail. Then on top of that, just the jump in quality of open world is amazing too. From Stories 1 being mostly flat terrain, Stories 2 having a bit of verticality and a bit more interesting terrain, to Stories 3 feeling like maps straight out of the modern mainline Monster Hunter games as far as how intricately they are laid out, how much thought is put into verticality and traversal, and the world is also full of monsters, large monsters, small monsters, even endemic life everywhere. It just makes it all feel so much more like a realistic ecosystem and really enhances the immersion of the experience as far as I'm concerned. The special monster types and encounters are not just more plentiful, but way more interesting and varied too. Feral monsters being monsters that have gained an extra element into their moveset and have one body part that will deal damage back to you if you hit it at the wrong time. And invasive monsters, I can't speak too much about at this point as far as specifics about them, but they are possibly my favorite encounter type in the full Monster Hunter Stories series. A lot of Stories fights feel like you're either trying to beat something through raw stats, or through creating a fun strategy through using specific genes and specific moves to basically script your way through a fight, like the turn-based equivalent of a speedrun. But the invasive monsters are totally different. They are their own kind of challenge where you essentially have to work out what the correct answer is to win the fight. It's like a word problem, except instead of you needing to work out how many apples Susie has at the end of her day at the market, you're working out what specific course of action counters this specific invasive monster. Like it's a little puzzle unique to each one, and they all have their own special visual flares to them too, and this is one of the things I'm most want to talk about at length, but also it's one of the things I am least allowed to discuss. So that is as far as I can say about it, really, other than just, again, re-emphasizing that I think these are an immensely potent addition to the journey of a Monster Hunter Stories game. As well as worth mentioning that building a perfect Monstie is easier than it has ever been in the past, and beyond the ease of it, it's just simpler, it's more comfortable. With the genes themselves, you can now search for genes from a list instead of just looking through Monsties one at a time. You can ask that list to look for genes that you don't even own, and if you have seen a Monstie that could have got that gene, it will then tell you how you can get it. When using the rite of channeling to give a gene from one Monstie to another one, it does not release the one that you take the gene out of. Instead, you can transfer every single gene out of the same Monstie if you actually wanted to, and if you then change your mind later on, you can move all the genes back into that Monstie. There is no punishment at all. Not to mention that actually getting at Monsties to begin with, as in the part where you get eggs from nests and dens, is way more streamlined than it was in the past, while also having some more mechanics related to. Not only is there stuff like the ability to have double nests and dens or infinite eggs within a den in just like rare circumstances when you enter one, higher battle rating in combat gives you higher retreat rate against the monster when the combat ends, and retreats are the most effective way to farm a specific monster's eggs. Once you have that monster to S rank in the ecosystem, it increases the chances of gold or platinum shine versions of its eggs showing up there. When you retreat a monster into its retreat den, you get 2 nests with an obscene amount of egg pulls before they run out. It's not quite infinite, but an insane amount of them, and because they are locked to only being that monster's egg, this lets you heavily target a specific Monstie that you want to farm, which in turn makes it much easier to farm out specific genes just to build up one Monstie into an absolute powerhouse. On which note, I should also mention the excursion system, which has not come up until this point, but this is an extra mechanic in the game. Not the same thing as the expedition system from Stories 2 before you assume. Let's go. And these are actually a way to rebuild or retool an existing Monstie. An example being my Bashadan was born in the Canalta Timberland region. Him being born there means that he gets bonus stamina recovery as a bonus stat, and he gets the egg power skills of Canalta due to being an S-rank Monstie as well. If I were to then send this Bashadan on an excursion to Azuria, he will basically change as if he were born in Azuria. For the egg powers, they do require them to be the higher ranks, so I would still need to have an S rank Bishotten somewhere in one of the ecosystems in Azuria. Then I would be able to move all 3 egg powers and change them to the set of Azuria's egg powers. This would also let me change his bonus stat from stamina recovery into maximum HP. You aren't able to stack all these bonuses together, sadly, but you can swap them as if it was born elsewhere. Not only is this good for if you decide to make a change to a monster you've already spent a lot of time on later on, but a good example would be that Azuria does not have a zone that is either ice element focused or dragon element focused. But this means that I could make a dragon or ice dual element monster from another region, then make them go on an excursion to Azuria, and that way I can have the monster be the element typing that I want, while also being able to have the egg powers and stat bonus from this region. Despite that pairing not being possible naturally, they have simply just given you a ton of control, a ton of options, and made it a much more approachable system. Then one last thing I need to mention on the subject of why Stories 3 is worth your attention. I talked about it in a previous video, but I have to bring it up again. It's the side stories with the Ranger companions. I love these guys. They have so much personality shoved into them. They each have their own unique vibe, and we're all like a big happy family. But a fun bonus to this is that there are side stories you unlock for each one as you progress the game. These are like extra involved side quests, fully voiced, story tied to the character that gave you the quest, and the quests themselves are quite unique, like Ogden, who is hunting down strange variations of known species like Super Speedy Velocidrome, as the one that I can tell you about for him, or Thea, whose family owns the Poogie Ranch outside of Azuria, and her Poogies all ran away, which is the in-game explanation for the Poogie collectible system around the map in the game. But a fun bonus part of that is that Thea has a skill called a Poogie Parade that scales its damage with the number of Poogies that you have found. So the more of a completionist you are, the stronger Thea will get. As for the actual content of her side story, though, this is just the most wild thing in the game in my opinion, because it results in a monster racing mini-game where you have to race against a giant Poogie, and it's just the type of thing that, like, if the devs didn't do this, no one would have complained. If this quest was simply to beat a big Poogie in actual combat, like in an actual fight, and that was it, that wouldn't be too surprising. I wouldn't have been disappointed if that was what it was, but that's not it. They implemented a whole racing mini-game specifically for this purpose, and it's just so over the top in the best kind of way. These are the types of things that I mean when I tell people that Monster Hunter games are just oozing with passion from the developers. Nothing here feels half-assed. Nothing feels phoned in. They had a vision for the game, a vision beyond the scope of the previous Monster Hunter Stories games, and that vision has resulted in such a fantastic experience. Again, I am only allowed to speak within the context of the first 2 regions of the game, but as far as that slice of it goes, it is one of my favorite Monster Hunter-related experiences that I have had the pleasure of enjoying. There's just something so special about this take on the concept of Monster Hunter, and Stories 3 specifically has nailed it even harder than the previous 2 in my opinion. That just about does it for today, number 1. This is going to be the last of our preview videos on Stories 3, at least for now. Again, feel free to ask any questions down in the comments below, and if there are things that we are allowed to answer, then we will try to do so. But I feel the need to stress the part where I am only allowed to talk about stuff from the first 2 regions. I've seen people ask stuff like, is X monster in the game, or ask questions about endgame, and I just can't answer those types of questions. But if you want to know about how a specific mechanic works or something like that, that is a little bit easier to discuss. Anyways, I hope you've all enjoyed this, and let me know your own thoughts on Stories 3 down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment.
Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes and make the whole world a stage. Is oh my god, new egg, it's purple gypsyros? Yeah, sure, why not?
Ladies,
gentlemen, and Monsters of all ages, for building up steam heading right towards the release of Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection, and I am so excited for this game. I love the previous Stories games, especially the amount of depth and content that they had in Stories 2, and the multiplayer side of that game was a lot of bonus fun as well. And I think Stories 3 is shaping up to just look even better, like more of the same, but done in even better ways. Today I'm going to talk about why I am excited for Stories 3 specifically, and I'll of course mention any new information that has been revealed since the last time that I updated you guys on the game back in early December. That said, let's start with the story. The story is going to be much more mature, with the player character literally being older, and you can see this very clearly in this art that was directly shared from the devs, showing the relative height of each of the main characters, the protagonists from each story's game, and showing how we've gone from being a proper child in the first game to a full-on proper human person now. Not to imply that children aren't like human, but they're not complete yet. They're undergoing maintenance. Beyond the protagonists themselves, there's a much more serious and dire situation going on in the world. The story itself is darker. Not only an existential threat from something infecting nature, which is a common thread through all the story's games, but this time the threat of war between humans, between riders, and between monsties. And yet, even through that, it seems like we'll have the same sort of humor around too, which is a big part of the charm of Stories, in my opinion. And then mechanically, there's lots of cool stuff going on, like the habitat restoration system, where you've got endangered species type monsters, and if you find their eggs and you hatch them, you can then release them into the wilds to basically heal the ecosystem back up. You can level the ecosystem by doing this, and this has mechanical results of you being able to find stronger and more interesting monsties. Like, this is the main way that you get element and color swapped monsties in Stories 3, which is a mechanic that's returning properly. Or in some cases, you can unlock variants or deviant monsters through this. Like we have seen Dread Queen Rathian confirmed as an unlock through this system, which is just a great example of what it could be used for. At the same, this system as a whole, the ecosystem restoration, is something that I'm super interested in because it just feels like an incredibly immersive way to do a progression in a Stories game. Not only does it fit in perfectly with our character being a ranger, which is a group of riders that exist to try and protect and heal the surrounding environments, and we do so by helping endangered species recover, literally through the gameplay itself, not just through the story, but through the gameplay. And taking out the invasive species that are causing issues to begin with, of course, to make the species not be in danger of being endangered. The invasive species are causing a ruckus as a direct result of the crystal encroachment, and that is the big, bad, natural threat that's taken over the land, or I guess an unnatural threat. It is crystallizing entire areas, causing monsters to flee their homelands and become invasive species, causing eggs to get crystallized and lost just the same way that our protagonist Rathalos was, the Skyscale Rathalos, which is our special story companion in Stories 3. And this even extends to the point that we have seen footage, very briefly, mind you, of a crystal-encroached feral Yamasukami, who is one of my favorite monsters that has not been in a mainline series game since the second generation, but is now in Stories 3 as a fightable creature. I have no expectations that he will be an actual monster because of his pure size. I would love him to be, but I don't think he will be, but he is a monster, and he's going to be a very imposing fight by all imagination. Beyond that, the charm level just oozing from this game is so high on the whole. Even things like now we can finally ride Plesioth, who has existed as an enemy monster in the previous stories games, but not a monstie in the previous ones. And his actual walking animation while you're riding on top of him is absolutely hilarious. And this brings me to the point that you can just actively swap monsties at will while riding. It's simpler than ever, and this is to intentionally make traversal in the open world much smoother and more enjoyable too. Like you can swap from a swimmer to a jumper to a flyer in the blink of an eye. Speaking of eyes, fun fact, Odogaron cannot blink because it does not have eyelids. Let's go. Second fun fact, Odogaron is expected to be in Stories 3 due to this red and black fanged wyvern pattern egg. This then becomes even more important the fact you can switch between monsters like that. When you take in the size of the world, the depth of the world, and especially the verticality of areas that they've shown off so far, the actual overworld open areas are seemingly much more involved than the previous Stories games. Now, on a side note of that, one of the new things that we've been getting to see in footage, like from a presentation that happened just earlier today as part of the regular Capcom TV streams that they do, we got to see the inside of some monster dens. Dens are accessed from the overworld, and inside of them are where you find monster nests. Interact with the nest to dig through them to search for eggs, and those eggs are what you use to hatch the actual monster from. In Stories 2 specifically, most dens were at least a couple of rooms, things to collect or encounter, a monster at the nest itself, of course, whereas in Stories 3, at least in the examples of early game dens that we've been shown, they are basically just a very tiny, condensed area right in front of the entrance. Sometimes there is a sleeping monster guarding them, but not even directly on top of the nest, more further back in the area. area, and you can also even have dens that have multiple nests instead of just one of them now, and you can keep one egg from each nest per den. So if a den has two nests, you can get 2 eggs. Now imagine what happens if you can have that trigger on like a super rare den, or hey, we don't know how far this goes either. Maybe endgame super rare dens will have like 3 or 4 nests to make them just really feel like a properly exciting reward for finding something very uncommon. Obviously, that's just speculation. All we know for sure is that you can have 2 nests in a den, and the concept alone of that being possible, along with the dens being smaller and the open world being a larger focus as well, it all sounds like a very fun direction to take stories moving forward, in my opinion. Like a good set of positive changes from the previous entries, but also they make sense when you put all of these changes together as well. Beyond that, the monsties are great. I mentioned that Plesioth is now a rideable monstie in Stories 3, but beyond that, we know of things like Ravnik and Daki, Magnamalo, Ray Dow, and the devs even teased Arkveld as a monster that will be in the game, saying his kinship attack is incredible, which then of course implies that he will be a rideable monstie too. And we've got a whole new egg pattern and color that we hadn't seen in any previous Stories game, which we're all assuming to be Carapaceans, and specifically this one being Shogun Scimitar, which I am so excited about. I am really happy if we get to ride crabs. As well, there was more information from the presentation I mentioned before, the one that happened earlier today. We had another monstie confirmed for the game, which is just the return of Purple Gypsaros, whose egg is the purple and green bird wyvern pattern. As well, while I don't know if or how this will extend to our own monsties personally, I love the visuals of the armored monsties that people are riding in the trailers, the ones that are going to war. Obviously, it's meant to emphasize that they are being used for battle and that it's a bad thing and stuff like that, but I can't help but think they look badass, and I would love the ability to armor up my own buddies in the game too. The characters all seem to have a ton of personality, which isn't necessarily unusual for the Stories game series, but it's nice to see that with all this effort they put into expanding the gameplay and the mechanics and deepening the world and making the story more mature and serious and stuff, that they haven't left the characters themselves by the wayside. And seemingly most of our actual interactable friends on the journey will be the Ranger Squad, who range from big tough lady to old cookie scholar to fresh-faced newbie who has an unnatural obsession with boogies that I completely respect. And these characters even get their own crazy special moves too, which are very cool to see in action in the game. As well, they've said there will be actual side stories for these characters, which is like a character-specific side quest chain that will, of course, teach you more about them. But it will also make that character stronger, unlock the ability for them to use different weapon types, and even have different monstie partners with them, which really expands the way that you can prepare yourself for team-based battling. And there's even a bit of an ominous cloud above one character's head that I've been keeping an eye on. This is Simon. He is repeatedly told to us to be our best friend and fellow member of the Rangers, but there are various times in the promotional materials, the trailers, the screenshots, that they show the entire Ranger Squad, but not Simon. And so I'm really just getting attached to the mystery of why? Where is he? Does he betray us? Does he die? Am I crazy and just reading too far into the whole thing, into the limited information that we have so far? Any of those 3 things is entirely possible, as far as I'm concerned. Beyond that, there's the combat itself, and on a base level, there's Longsword in the game now, new to the Story series, and it looks quite fun for sure. There's also a new powered-up monster type related to the whole Crystal Encroachment system called Feral Monsters. These have the Crystal Encroachment, growing on top of them. It affects their movesets and their fights on a deeper level as well. You can directly target the crystals, but doing so can actually result in damage reflecting back onto you. So you have to break the crystals to weaken their most dangerous attacks, but you have to be careful about how you do it, and more accurately, when you do it, purposely waiting for the correct moment in the fight where it is safe to do so. So between these and the invasive species monsters fight as well, which also get unique moves compared to the normal movesets, we have 2 different monster variation types to create more interesting enemies to fight through the game, and add extra depth to combat beyond the rock, paper, scissors combat system too. There's also the Wyvern Soul gauge system at the top of the screen, which essentially works like a knockdown or stagger bar. If you deplete the layer, you will stagger the monster and skip that monster's turn. And if you fully empty the bar of all of its layers, you get a proper knockdown that lets you do a synchro rush attack. This is a new thing that is basically a timed button press to do a big, powerful, punishing attack with all friendly characters in the fight working together simultaneously. Beyond that, something that I am still really happy to see is just the pure amount of information that you can get from the UI in combat in Stories 3. Stuff like being able to see the full element resist chart for the monster that you are fighting against, or the fact that you can actively see how much damage each of their body parts has taken in a very visible way. Sure, for some, this level of UI might become a little bit overwhelming, but the way I see it is more information is just more power for the players. More knowledge gives you more agency in how you act in any given situation, and I think that it works great for the strategic turn-based combat system that Stories 3 will follow. That just about does it for today, then, everyone. I'm honestly just struggling to contain my own excitement, my own pure hype about Stories 3 as someone who absolutely adored Stories 2 and really liked Stories 1 as well. And so I wanted to just gush about the reasons why I feel this way, especially as we are getting closer to launch, and also mentioning these small bits of new information that we have had over the last month, as little as they've been. Though we are expecting a larger information drop for this game to happen at some point in February, so keep your ears peeled. That's not a saying goes. Please don't peel your ears. I hope you all enjoyed this, and let me know your own thoughts on Stories 3 so far in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Is bye.
My furball is in the game! I thought I was your furball! Do you make blades of ice on your arms? No. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, Monster Hunter Stories 3 is right around the corner, and today I want to round up all of the known public info about Stories 3 before the release of the game coming up in a week. And while I'll be trying to round up all the important general stuff for anyone out of the loop, there will be a bit of a frontal focus on the newest reveals from the last couple of days, as just over 12 hours before this video went up, there was a Capcom Spotlight stream with Monster Hunter Stories 3 involved, and outside of that there was also a Monstie personality quiz released on the official website recently, which said that it would tell you which Monstie you should use in the game based on your personality, your answers to the questions. And two of the potential results through these are things that people thought were quite likely to be in the game anyways, but now fully confirmed because of this quiz of all things, are Lunagaron, the third of the three lords from Sunbreak, because the other two had already been confirmed from the game, and then also Goss Harag, one of my all-time favorite monsters, properly confirmed here as a Monstie with his Stories model here as well. That said, for the actual spotlight and the reveals from that, we had this shot of combat against a Blanganga, so full confirmation of Blanganga in the game, and we had further Gossarag confirmation in a blink and you miss it moment of Thea doing a kinship attack from the back of a Gossarag for like a few frames, but you can easily tell that it's Thea riding Gossarag if you pause at the right moment, and they also showed alternates for the other riders too. Korra riding a Garangolm, Ogden riding a Plesioth surfing on its back for the kinship, and Gaul with a Seregios. And then Eleanor, we already know had a Gladness as her second Monstie from the most recent trailer we had too. The other new thing at the very tail end of this trailer was Rudy having a static electricity moment reminiscent of a certain other important cat in the Stories series, so you'll have to see what that might result in the full game. Beyond the launch trailer itself, they talked about a few bonuses for the game, including the save data linking rewards, which are a Stories layered outfit for Stories save data, Stories 2 layered outfit for Stories 2 save data, Kimura layered outfit for Rise save data, and then also the Hope outfit for Wild save data as well. They also showed this outfit for Rudy that you get for linking your Capcom ID to the game, and mentioned this free DLC available at release, the Golden Circlet accessory for character creation, and this layered outfit for Simon as well, which will also be free. Then the pre-order specific limited bonus is the Skyscale Queen layered armor set for Eleanor 2, and they also mentioned that when the game releases, there will be a sort of like anime trailer side tie-in thing, where it will tell you stories within the world and about characters, but stuff that won't be in the actual game, it will be in an anime style, and it sounds really cool to me. Beyond that, they also updated the Stories 3 official website with a bit more information, including the full confirmation of Soul Seer Mizitsune, which was pretty much assumed because Mizitsune was known to be in the game, and we also knew that there was a slot after Mizitsune in the Monsterpedia that would likely be this, but now we have it fully just given to us by Capcom. Then we also have a new invasive monster confirmed on the website too, which is Invasive Plesioth, looking all gnarly and shiny, covered in barnacles, and I honestly just really like him visually. Moving a bit further back in time, then let's round up what we know. The story centers around our main character, the Prince or Princess of Azuria, based on your choice when we pick your character. As a child, we witnessed the birth of twin Rathalos, which is supposedly a portent of disaster in our kingdom. An execution was going to be held to remove one of the Rathalos, but the Queen of the Kingdom itself took the monster away. Skip ahead into the future a bit, and we are the captain of the Rangers, which is the squad of riders in charge of maintaining the ecosystem surrounding the kingdom, among other things in the region too. In the distance, there is the incoming threat of the Crystal Encroachment, a strange phenomenon sweeping the land, freezing monsters where they stand, forcing monsters to invade areas that are not their normal living environment, and completely destabilizing the ecosystem they wander into. In the background of this, there is a more human conflict at play as well, as the Kingdom of Vermeil and our own Kingdom of Azuria are at the brink of war, with various trailers showing clips of battle between soldiers and monsters on both sides fighting together, and that is the basics of what's going on. We have 6 weapon types available as riders in this game. 5 of them are returning ones from the previous games in the form of the Greatsword, Hammer, Hunting Horn, Bow, and Gunlance, and then Longsword is new, replacing the Sword and Shield, which had previously been the second sharpness damage weapon. And that said, all of these weapons have been reworked, at least in some way, if not major reworks all over the place. Like Hammer is now a stun and flinch focused weapon in a very meaningful way. This is possible because of the addition of the Wyvern Soul gauge to monsters. This is the gauge under a monster's health bar, and every attack from monsters and every skill from riders will apply damage to that gauge. Hammer, uniquely unlike the other weapons, can apply damage to that gauge with its basic attacks as well. Not only these skills like other weapons, but also the basic attacks. Breaking the Wyvern Soul gauge will result in a flinch and fatigue state, which means that the monster will be likely to miss you, and if you reach a full break of the Wyvern Soul gauge, as some monsters do have multiple gauges of Wyvern Soul before they reach this point, the full break gets you a topple, and then you can either do the new Synchro Rush mechanic for a big multi-attack from your whole squad at the same time that also significantly boosts your kinship, or you can not press anything and then have the monster knocked down for free critical hits on the next turn. You will always fight with battle allies, which also have their own monster and weapon choice, and using this system you can sort of shore up your own weaknesses with the strengths of the correct partner to match your playstyle. Fun fact about Stories 3 that's new, you can change the tendency of your battle ally manually, so you even have more control over where they hit, though none of these options is perfect, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and you might have to change it around depending on the fight, but it's awesome to have that option. Another thing with these side characters here, the battle allies that you have, the Rangers, is that they also have side stories, which are unique pieces of content for them specifically, going through their own sort of a unique side of the world and what they actually focus on, and show you a little bit of their backstory and what they basically do for the Rangers, what their role is within the Rangers. As well, there are 2 new fight types in this game, aside from the standard monster combat, which are feral monsters, which have crystals from the encroachment in their body. They tend to be dual element monsters as well, which means that they will use a non-standard element for their species, and they have one body part marked as the proper feral part. Destroying the feral part weakens their feral attacks, which are the most dangerous parts of the fights, but if you hit that part at the wrong time, it will have a damage reflect type mechanic that punishes you, so you have to work out what time in the fight is safe to hit that part. And it's usually either when they are enraged or aren't enraged. It's one of the two. Then the other new type is one of my favorite parts of Story 3 so far, which is invasive monsters. These we can't show too much of this early, but they essentially function as much like puzzles as they do like battles, where there is some sort of thing that you have to do to end the fight, and while you are going through the normal turn-based loop, the win condition is something that you have to actually work out, and then correctly pull off in the moment. It's a really satisfying deviation from the normal fights, but I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here talking about what I like instead of just what's in the game, so to refocus myself a bit, this directly ties into endangered species and the habitat restoration system. Defeating an invasive monster gives you access to an endangered monster egg. This is an egg for a species that you otherwise cannot find in the game. You can then release the endangered monster into the wild to populate an area with that species, and this extends beyond endangered species too for the habitat restoration system in general. Through this system, as you release monsters of the same species, you will raise its rank in the area, which makes its eggs be higher quality and in theory more common in that area too. And it also makes that monster spawn in the region in general, just in the overworld if you wanted to fight it and maybe farm it for materials. As well, if a monster's rank is high enough in a habitat, it will have a chance of taking on the element of that area, because every area has its own element attributed to it. Early examples that I use are putting a Chotacabra in a thunder zone to make Thunder Chotacabra, or putting Garangolm in a water area to make Water Garangolm. And I love that they have brought back the element changing monsters properly as it was sort of in Stories 1, and then they reduced it a lot in Stories 2, but now it's actually like so much intrinsically attached to the game mechanics, like the actual ecological explanations behind it. It's just so deeply rooted into the game, and I love that. Beyond that, this can also unlock mutations, which are things like subspecies or rare species, deviant versions of monsters that are also unlocked through the habitat restoration system when you meet certain conditions, releasing them into different areas. And beyond that, each overarching region has its own unique skills and stats. There's a system called excursions that lets you mix and match these a little bit. You can't stack more than 3 egg skills or more than 2 bonus stats on a monster, but you can mix an egg skill from one region with an egg skill from another with the system. And this is the simplest way of explaining it really. The other main way to adjust already existing monsties is the right of channeling confirmed to return in this game, and it's way more convenient than it has been in the past, as you can choose the gene that you want from a list without having to search one monstie at a time, and you can ask that list to show you where a gene came from too. If it is one that you're capable of finding but you do not yet possess, it can show you where you can get it, so you can hunt it down to get your perfect monstie, knowing exactly where to go and what you want. As for the monsties themselves, there's a whole topic in itself, especially as a lot of them also have known footage of their kinship attacks that you might be interested in too. And so for this part, I point you towards this video that we just put out a few days ago with all of the known monsties and kinships up until that point. And the only things revealed since then, we have already talked about at the beginning of this video because it was revealed from the last couple of days. Though I do feel the need to also point out that Korra's Gravios in the demo does have an attack called Bishaten Embers, and regular Bishaten doesn't use fire. So Blood Orange Bishaten seems highly likely, if not fully confirmed, just by the fact of that ability's existence. Final thing to talk about then really is the Calamity Elder Dragons, and this is a section that I would say might count as being spoilery for anyone who wants to experience Elder Dragons themselves in the games. It is a very unique experience this time around, but if you just want to know what has already been spread by Capcom, I'll go through it right now. Warning over, these spawn when fighting battles at night, and each region seems to have a different one. When they come into existence, the weather in the entire region will change. You have to go to their location, and worth mentioning as it hasn't come up so far, the movement in traversal is just way improved compared to previous stories games too. But once you reach the monster, you can fight the Elder Dragon, and it's a way more advanced fight than most of the other combat you'll do. Namielle is the most known one, as it is the Elder of Azuria. It's in the demo, the first region, and she has the repel threshold, so you don't have to do her entire health bar in one go. And as a result of that, people actually have managed to defeat her in the demo by abusing status and Wyvern Soul Gauge, and confirm that